Okay, let's start with a feeling. A feeling I think almost everyone listening knows. You're standing there waiting for an elevator, or maybe you're sitting in a meeting room with colleagues you don't really know and it hasn't started yet. And the silence is just, it's deafening.
It's almost a physical pressure, isn't it? That void.
It is. It's this heavy, awkward space where you feel like you should be saying something, but you have no idea what. Nothing feels important enough.
And the immediate instinct for so many of us is just to retreat. You pull out your phone, you check an email you've already read twice.
Right, or you suddenly become incredibly fascinated with the pattern on the carpet.
Anything to avoid having to, initiate. Because we have this assumption that, well, that language has to be functional. It has to be for solving a problem or sharing vital information.
And if it's not, then just say nothing.
Exactly.
And that's why small talk gets such a terrible reputation. I mean, it's just dismissed as fluff, as pointless social noise.
Or, as a skill that only natural extroverts have. If you're an advanced language learner, you're focused on complex grammar, on academic vocabulary, and you look at small talk and just think,
why would I bother with this? This is trivial.
Precisely. But what our sources for this deep dive argue, and I think really compellingly, is that this social lubrication, this perceived fluff, is actually a vital piece of social technology.
Technology, I like that.
It is. And for anyone aiming for that C1, and especially that C2 level of fluency, mastering advanced small talk, it's not optional. It's the shortcut to sounding genuinely natural.
It's the difference between sounding technically correct, like a textbook, and actually sounding like you belong in the conversation.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
And that right there is our mission for today's deep dive. We've distilled it from the sources, and it's this: to prove that small talk isn't pointless at all. It's actually one of the most sophisticated, high-value skills an advanced English speaker can possibly develop.
So to do that, we have to start with a really clear definition. What are we actually talking about when we say small talk?
Right. So as we're analyzing it, it's these light, casual conversations. And the key thing is what they are not. They are not deep. They are not emotional. And this is probably the most important part. They are not problem-solving focused.
Okay, so the purpose isn't to fix something. The purpose is purely social.
Purely. It's to break the ice, to fill a silence, to, just acknowledge the other person's existence in a friendly way. It's a low-stakes social calibration tool.
And it is absolutely everywhere. I mean, its ubiquity is what makes it so important.
Think about it. The break room at work, waiting for that elevator we mentioned at the gym.
Bumping into a neighbor in the hallway.
The school pickup line. Any kind of waiting room or reception area. And maybe the easiest place of all, the airport gate.
And the beauty of it really is that you don't need to prepare a speech. You don't need a PowerPoint presentation. The topics are incredibly predictable.
They're all safe. They're neutral. The weather, which is the absolute classic.
Of course.
Your commute, what you're doing for the weekend, maybe travel, or just, a minor shared annoyance.
The topic is right there in front of you.
The context provides the topic. You're both in the same place at the same time, sharing an experience. Maybe you're both waiting or you're both frustrated by a delay. That shared context is the open door. You just have to walk through it.
Okay, so to show how this works in practice, we've got 5 really specific kind of granular real-life scenarios. 5 case studies that show advanced small talk in action.
And we're going to break down the dialogue in each one. We're not just looking at the words, but the rhythm, the intonation, the little idiomatic shortcuts that really signal that C2 level of fluency.
We'll walk you through them step by step and connect it all back to the kind of advanced linguistic ideas you might already know so you can start applying these principles right away.
Right. And start sounding, truly fluent.
Okay, so let's pivot to the mechanics of this. We need to go a bit deeper than just the definition. Because you, listening, you might feel totally confident discussing, geopolitical strategy.
Or quantum computing.
Exactly. But the second someone says, miserable weather we're having, you just freeze up. So why does this low-stakes conversation style? Why does it matter so much for an advanced learner?
Well, what's so fascinating here is that small talk it's the ultimate proving ground for your C2 competence. It's where the theory hits the road.
What do you mean by that?
An advanced learner often has this huge vocabulary, right, and really solid formal grammar. But they can struggle with the spontaneity, the fluidity that small talk demands.
The messy reality of it.
The messy reality. It's the bridge between knowing the language in your head and actually performing it socially in the real world.
And it's actually the low-pressure environment that makes it such a great place to practice.
Absolutely. If you're debating a major company policy, you have to be precise. You have to use formal, technical language.
There's no room for error.
But if you're just complaining about a delayed flight at the airport with a fellow passenger, you can use colorful idioms, you can use a bit of slang, you can play with the language without any fear of, losing credibility.
And you mentioned it before, it's not planned. It has to grow organically out of the situation. And that's the scary part, but it's also the valuable part.
It's what trains your conversational agility. I think it helps to think of it less as a conversation and more of a collaborative social ritual.
That actually brings us to a really key concept from sociolinguistics. It's called phatic communion. It sounds academic, but it describes exactly what we're talking about.
It really does. The anthropologist Bronislaw Malinowski, he was the one who defined it, and he said it's not an exchange of ideas, it's an exchange of sounds. The words are just there to maintain social contact.
So the meaning of the words is secondary.
Totally secondary. The act of speaking, the act of making friendly noises, that's the primary function.
So when I turn to someone and say, gosh, it's a bit chilly today, isn't it? I'm not actually requesting a weather report.
No, of course not.
I'm really saying, I see you, I'm friendly, we share this physical reality. The words are just the vehicle for that social message.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And for you, as a C2 learner, understanding that function is so liberating, it takes all the pressure off. You don't have to say something brilliant or important. Your goal is connection, not content.
Okay, and if we drill down even further into the language itself, advanced small talk uses two other really important linguistic tools, ellipsis and deixis. We kind of need to get these to master the rhythm.
Right, so ellipsis is just. It's leaving out words that are grammatically necessary, but are completely understood from the context. It's a conversational shortcut.
So instead of saying, the gym is pretty busy in here today, isn't it?
An advanced or native speaker just says busy in here today, isn't it?
Busy in here, you drop the subject, you drop the verb.
And that tiny omission, that shortcut, it signals a shift into a more casual, informal register. It's efficient, and when an advanced learner does it spontaneously, it sounds immediately natural.
Okay, so that's ellipsis. What about deixis?
Deixis refers to words that basically, they point. They only make sense because of the physical context you're in. Words like this, that, here, over there, yesterday.
This machine or this long wait.
Exactly. The language is pointing directly at your shared environment, which just reinforces that common ground we talked about.
Yeah.
If you don't use deigdic words naturally, your small talk can sound really abstract, like you're not actually present in the moment with the other person.
Okay, so across all the scenarios we're about to look at, there are a few core principles that just keep coming up, right?
3 of them, really, that govern all effective small talk.
And the first is the one we keep coming back to. Find common ground.
Always. The gym is crowded, the traffic is awful, the flight is delayed. You find that shared problem, that shared setting, and that's your starting point. It's safe footing.
Second, keep the tone light and polite, even if you're complaining.
Yes, this is crucial. This is not the time for a deep philosophical debate or to unload all your anxieties. It's a light complaint, not a therapy session.
And
Be genuine. The topic might be superficial, but the social effort, the act of connecting, that has to feel authentic. If you sound forced or overly formal, people can feel that. The goal is to build just a tiny foundation of trust.
Right. And let's just touch on that C2 language requirement one more time, because I think this is where advanced learners really hesitate. They worry so much about perfection.
They do. They feel like every single sentence has to have perfect syntax.
When the reality is...
What? The reality is that C2 fluency in small talk is much more about prosody. That's the rhythm, the stress, the intonation of your speech, and your use of idiomatic expressions. It's not about pristine grammar.
So how it sounds is more important than how grammatically correct it is.
In these moments, yes.
Yeah.
The human ear prioritizes what sounds natural. Phrases like, tell me about it, or no kidding, or I know the feeling. When you deliver those with the right timing and the right musicality, it signals fluency instantly.
It's the difference between a perfectly constructed but stiff robotic sentence
and just dropping in a quick, perfectly timed idiom that feels completely real. That's what you're aiming for. Small talk is where you learn to apply all those academic skills to the messy, spontaneous world of human interaction.
Okay, let's get into the field research then. 5 scenarios. Let's start with a classic high awkwardness environment. Scenario 1, at the gym.
Right. This setting is tricky. It's constrained by time, by physical space. You're waiting for a machine, someone else is on it. You're both hyper aware of each other.
But you have that built-in common ground, fitness, the shared objective.
Which means the situation really demands a fast, efficient opener to just cut through that social friction.
So let's break down this exchange. We've got person A who's using the machine and person B who is waiting. What happens first?
Okay, so person A, the user, has to be the one to speak first to reduce the tension. They have to acknowledge the situation. So they might say something like, oh, are you waiting for this one? I just got one more set. Should be done in a minute.
Notice the ellipsis there again. Not, I have just got, but I've just got. It's faster. It's an apology and a promise all in one.
Exactly. And then person B's job is to completely de-escalate, to remove any pressure. So they'd say, no worries at all. Take your time seriously.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to avoid the cardio machines anyway.
A little bit of self-deprecating humor. That's a great move. It just disarms the whole situation.
Completely. And then they can transition to that shared observation, that deictic reference to the environment. Person A looks around and says, thanks. It's pretty busy today, isn't it?
The shared complaint. The gym is crowded. It's universal. It's safe. It's the perfect common ground.
And person B can use this to expand the conversation just a little bit, give a bit of context about their own routine. It's always packed around this time, unfortunately. I was aiming for the early slot, but I got caught up with an emergency client call.
That's a perfect conversational move. You're shifting from the immediate environment, the crowded gym, to a relatable struggle, which is balancing work and fitness, another safe, neutral topic.
And person A can immediately relate. I know the feeling. I've been trying to switch to morning workouts myself, but that 5:30 a.m. alarm is just, it's brutal.
So they can briefly chat about the pros and cons, right? The idea that the weight section is empty before 7 a.m., which is tempting. The whole conversation is built around this shared pain and a mutual respect for each other's time.
And the timing here is absolutely crucial to the analysis.
Yeah.
This whole conversation, it probably lasts 45 seconds, maybe a minute max. It's purely there to fill the time while person A finishes their set.
So the social value is just the removal of friction. It makes the wait less awkward.
That's all it is. And the ending, the closure, is just as swift and functional. Person A stands up and says, all right, this one's all yours. Enjoy the rest of your session.
And person B can say, cheers, really appreciate it. Maybe I'll see you at 6 a.m. next week.
And that little closing joke, the 6 a.m. plan, it's a light, friendly, forward-looking comment. Acknowledges you might see each other again, but it doesn't create any actual social obligation. It's just polite maintenance.
Okay, let's move on. Scenario 2, neighbors in the hallway. Now, the context here shifts. It's not temporary, it's permanent. You are going to see this person again and again.
Which definitely changes the social math a little bit. You're raising the stakes from just filling silence, from phatic communion, to some very basic relationship building.
So you have that split-second decision when you see them. Do I just nod and smile, or do I actually open the door to a conversation?
And in most advanced social settings, making that brief contact usually pays off in the long run.
So this dialogue is a bit longer because they share that physical space, that history of living in the same building.
But the start is still really functional. It's about direction.
Hey there, just getting back.
Yeah, finally, long day.
And then neighbor A, who's just gotten home, they provide the emotional anchor for the conversation. They say, traffic was utterly brutal coming back. Took me 45 minutes just to get off the main road.
So the topic is the universal annoyance graphic. And here we get our first really deep C2 level idiom. Right, so neighbor B affirms the experience. Oh, I can only imagine. It's been crazy lately, especially since they started that construction on Elm Street. And then neighbor A responds with this classic phrase, tell me about it. I feel like I aged 5 years just sitting in that jam.
Tell me about it. Let's just pause on that. It's so much more than just saying, I agree. Linguistically, what is it doing?
It's what's called a truncated imperative. It's a command, tell me. But it's used ironically. It means the experience is so universal, so awful, that you actually don't need to tell me any more detail.
Because I already feel your pain.
I am already living your pain. It creates this immediate, intense bond over a shared problem. It's a very fast connection technique in English.
Okay, so after they've bonded over the traffic, neighbor B pivots. They move from just complaining to offering a practical solution.
Which is a very natural way to expand small talk. They say, have you ever thought about just using the train? It saves my sanity.
And neighbor A engages with that. I have, actually. I might start doing that a couple of days a week just to avoid the worst of the stress.
And then neighbor B reinforces their recommendation with another fantastic C2 shortcut. They say, you should. I switched last year and haven't looked back.
Haven't looked back. That's so efficient. It communicates a total change in habit and complete satisfaction with the new way.
It's so much stronger and more natural than saying, I made the switch and I continue to be satisfied with that decision. It packs so much meaning into just 3 words.
So the conversation then shifts again. They go from the personal annoyance of traffic to a shared community issue.
Right, a register change. Neighbor A says, oh, by the way, are you going to the building meeting next week about the heating system?
This shows that social integration needed for this kind of small talk, you can pivot from your personal world to the world you share in the building.
And they wrap up this little section with collective hope, using our 3rd idiom. I hope they actually sort the pressure out this time.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Again, it's concise, it's culturally understood, and it signals that shared anxiety about something you can't control.
This whole scenario is just a beautiful demonstration of the agility you need as an advanced speaker. You're moving from these short elliptical complaints, using idioms to bond, and then shifting registers to talk about something practical, like building maintenance.
It really shows that idioms aren't just, fancy decoration. They're structural. They're conversational accelerators.
Okay, let's ramp up the complexity. Scenario 3. School pickup. We're now dealing with a 3-person group dynamic. Parents A, B, and C. This requires some serious listening and inclusion skills.
The shared context here is so strong. They're all waiting, they all have the same goal, and they all share that same low-level frustration with the delay. So you need an icebreaker that includes everyone at once.
And the shared complaint is the perfect way to do it. Parent A kicks it off. They're taking forever today, aren't they? Feels like they're waiting for the clock to physically strike 3.3.
See the use of the collective they. It immediately invites parent B and C to join in. Parent B agrees, and then parent C brings in some specific shared knowledge. It's probably Mrs. Thompson keeping them late again. She's notorious for those end-of-day history lessons.
And this is where the advanced inclusion skills come in. Parent A has to track that new piece of information and respond to parent C, validating that shared reference point, the teacher. Year 4, right. My daughter loves her, though. Apparently, she makes history fascinating.
This is a skill called collective validation. The group is quickly confirming and building consensus about their shared world, in this case, the quality of a teacher. Then parent B asks an inclusive question to bring the focus back to parent A. He's settling in well then, if he likes history.
And from there, they can move smoothly into the general quality of the school. They're shifting register again from the immediate moment of waiting to the broader context of the institution itself.
And then parent B introduces the universal parent problem. It's the chaos outside that gets me, though. I have to drive, and the drop-off situation in the mornings is an absolute nightmare.
This is such a real, tangible source of stress for parents, and it allows the conversation to get a little deeper, to touch on safety concerns, which signals a level of trust in the group.
And the other parents immediately reinforce that shared anxiety. Parent C says, I've seen near misses with bikes and the traffic flow. It genuinely worries me sometimes.
This is more than just an inconvenience now. It's a real shared safety issue. And that level of vulnerability, even though it's still low stakes, shows that the small talk ritual is working. It's building connection.
And they can touch on the institutional response or lack thereof. I heard the PTA was trying to get some funding for traffic management. Seems like it's stalled again, though. That reinforces their shared frustration with bureaucracy.
The real lesson here for the advanced learner is about managing the conversational ball. It's not just about what you say.
No, it's about listening really carefully to track 3 different voices, referencing what someone said 2 turns ago, and making sure everyone feels heard. You're constantly bouncing questions and affirmations across the group to keep it balanced.
And the closure has to be ready to go. The
Yeah.
second that shared activity ends, the conversation has to end smoothly. The school doors open, the kids come out.
And you need those polite, formulaic closing lines.
Right.
Oh, finally, there they are.
About time.
And then the crucial social ritual. Well, it was nice catching up with you both. Yes, talk soon. Take care.
Yeah.
These phrases signal a clean, respectful exit. No awkward lingering.
Okay, scenario 4. We're moving into what you call the high tension zone, the doctor's waiting room. This requires maximum diplomacy.
Utmost respect. You have to use non-intrusive language and be really careful with your topics. People could be sick, they could be nervous, they could just be really impatient.
The social default here is silence, right? Don't engage.
It usually is. So the opening has to be a masterclass in what we call negative politeness. You use indirect, respectful language that gives the other person a really clear, easy way to opt out if they don't want to talk.
So the opener is super functional, but also really deferential. Excuse me, I apologize for interrupting, but is this seat taken?
Multiple layers of politeness there. And the reply, no, please, go ahead, it's all yours, is a warm invitation.
So the initial small talk, predictably, is about the shared experience. The wait. It's quite busy today, isn't it? Seems like they're running a good 45 minutes behind schedule.
And from that universal complaint, they can move to a personal connection, but one that's still safe and location-based. Patient A explains, I just moved to the area last month, so this is my first visit to the practice.
And that just opens the door to all these safe, practical topics. Settling in, finding your way around, and then patient A reveals a really specific, practical need. I've been wandering around all morning trying to find a decent coffee shop before my appointment.
And this is the perfect moment. This is where small talk can deliver real, concrete value. It's moving beyond just phatic communion. Patient B can immediately give a specific recommendation. You have to go to Brew & Co. just around the corner. They do excellent flat whites, much better than the chain across the street.
And just like that, patient A has actionable intelligence. That simple social exchange produced a tangible result.
It proves that small talk is often a really effective way to exchange low-stakes information.
So then they move on to discussing the practice itself. And this is where we see the most advanced social skill of all, using diplomacy to talk about people who might be difficult.
It's one thing to complain about a building or a delay. It's much riskier socially to criticize a person, especially someone you depend on for a service. So patient B starts with a very balanced assessment of the doctor. Dr. Long is thorough. Just expect a significant wait time every time you come in. She's not great with timing.
But it's the analysis of the receptionist where the C2 nuance really comes out.
Right. Patient B gives a fair warning, but it's wrapped in this diplomatic package. The receptionist can seem a bit abrupt, especially first thing in the morning. But she's actually really helpful once you get past that initial impression.
And patient A picks up on that caution and responds with a perfect diplomatic understatement. This is such a classic British conversational move. Good to know. I did notice when I checked in earlier, she seemed highly efficient.
Highly efficient. It's the perfect phrase. It confirms the impression without being rude. It's honest, but it's wrapped in this socially acceptable formality.
And patient B recognizes the verbal dance. They validate the choice of words. That's a very diplomatic way of putting it, yes. But seriously, she knows what she's doing. Just smile and you'll be fine.
That little exchange is C2 fluency in action. It's about managing face using indirect language to keep the social harmony while still getting the necessary information across.
And look at the practical outcome. Patient A got advice on the doctor's timing, a social key for dealing with the receptionist, and a great coffee tip, all from one polite, low-stakes chat.
It's the ultimate proof that small talk is not pointless. Not when the outcome is actionable knowledge that makes your life easier.
Okay, our final case study, scenario 5. At the airport gate. And this is often the easiest setting of all because you have this powerful concept of shared destiny.
The shared context is completely built in. You're all waiting, you're all a bit bored or frustrated, and you are all going to the exact same place. The connection is instant.
So the dialogue kicks off with a functional opener, but with a bit of light humor. Excuse me, is this the cue for the Madrid flight, or are we all just standing around blocking the gate?
And once that's cleared up, they move right to the fundamental travel dichotomy. So, are you heading to Madrid for work or a strictly holiday? That question sets the entire tone and topic for the rest of the chat.
Traveler B says it's a holiday, which lets them move into the expertise exchange. Traveler A mentions they've only been once for a quick, stressful business trip where they saw nothing but the convention center.
And Traveler B, who's been there multiple times, immediately gets to step into the role of the expert. And people love doing this. Oh, that's a shame. You have to get out of the business district. The nightlife's incredible. And the food, you honestly can't go wrong with the tapas in the Latina district.
People absolutely love sharing their expertise, especially about travel and food. It's a huge part of our identity.
And the impact of this brief conversation is actually quite significant. Traveler A, after hearing all these enthusiastic recommendations, starts to reconsider their whole trip.
That sounds amazing. My last meeting's on Thursday afternoon, so maybe I could try to stay an extra night and check out the old town before I fly back.
And that just confirms the unexpected power of small talk. A casual chat with a stranger literally leads to a decision to extend a trip and properly explore a city. The interaction didn't just fill silence. It genuinely influenced a real-life choice. They go on to discuss specific neighborhoods, transportation, and it all ends with these warm, genuine wishes for a great trip right as boarding starts. It just shows that when you tap into people's desire to share their experience, the benefits can go far beyond simple politeness.
So to recap, we've walked through 5 completely different settings, from the high-pressure, quiet gym floor to the chaotic social school pickup line.
And in every single one, we saw that same core social technology at work. Using phatic communion to connect, using ellipsis and DXEs to be efficient, and using idiomatic language to signal fluency and shared feeling.
So for you, the listener, if you're really working towards that C2 level, small talk is your essential training ground.
It has to be. It forces your brain to use the language in these unpredictable, spontaneous ways. And that is a huge leap from writing a pre-planned essay or doing a structured grammar exercise.
And critically, the stakes are so low. So low. The topic is light, the conversation is short. If you stumble over an idiom, if your grammar isn't perfect for a second, the social cost is tiny. It's a safe place to practice high-level spontaneity.
Which lets you focus on the things that really matter for fluency, like rhythm and intonation.
Exactly.
So to help you apply this right now, let's just consolidate that toolkit. A few specific, simple starter phrases that work in almost any context, built around those principles of common ground and pointing at the shared environment.
Okay. First one, referring to the immediate shared state, often with ellipsis. Busy in here today, isn't it?
Works in a gym, a shop, a waiting room, anywhere. It's a universal observation that invites a simple yes.
Second, addressing the shared element of time or waiting. Have you been waiting long?
Great for any kind of queue, any waiting room, any delay. It immediately opens the door for a shared complaint, which is a great bonding tool.
And third, addressing the location itself, which lets the other person be the expert. Is this your first time here? That immediately shifts the conversational burden to them, and people usually enjoy sharing their knowledge or their history with the place.
And just remember that key reassurance from our analysis.
Yeah.
Your grammar does not have to be perfect. Your timing, your rhythm, that's what you want to practice. Focus on getting those short, idiomatic phrases to sound natural.
The social effort, just the act of trying to connect, that's what people respond to. It far outweighs any small linguistic error you might make.
People are so much more forgiving of a grammatical slip in a friendly, spontaneous moment than they are of a stiff, formal, perfectly correct, but robotic rhythm.
And really, what's the worst that can happen?
A slightly awkward, very short conversation. That's it. And that's a tiny price to pay for real-world practice that will genuinely push your fluency forward.
Because that is how you get off that intermediate plateau. You have to consistently use the language in these messy, real-world situations that demand agility and natural rhythm, not just academic knowledge. So here's the challenge you want to leave you with. Next time you find yourself in one of these waiting situations, in a queue, at the gym, at that airport gate, just take a breath. Try one of those small starter comments, and then consciously listen to the response. Analyze the rhythm the other person uses, the shortcuts they take.
It gets easier, it gets more natural with every single deliberate attempt.
And finally, a thought for you to mull over as you work towards this advanced fluency.
Even native speakers have awkward conversations. All the time. We stumble over our words, we misread the social cues, and sometimes the silence just wins, even after we tried to fill it. That risk of awkwardness is a fundamental part of being human and communicating.
So the true measure of advanced social fluency isn't about flawless robotic execution of dialogue.
Not at all. It's about the willingness to keep engaging, to adapt, and to learn from these messy, unpredictable real-world social contexts. That willingness to risk a little bit of awkwardness, that is the final, essential ingredient for achieving true, advanced English fluency.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive, the place where we take these seemingly simple skills that, hide immense complexity, and we really perform a thorough analysis, turning social requirements into structured, actionable knowledge for you.
Yeah, and we're here because we know that proficiency in any field, really, whether it's coding, market analysis, or a new language, it isn't just about knowing the rules. It's about mastering the unspoken architecture. And today, we are diving deep into that architecture for what might be the most critical social skill of all, the anatomy of advanced small talk.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the moment when high-level English learners, those people operating at a C1 or even a C2 level, they just hit a wall. They can write a perfect academic essay, they can debate policy, but then they meet a new colleague at the coffee machine and they freeze up. They sound technically proficient, but they don't sound genuinely natural.
Or confident. And that's the key. Small talk is so often dismissed as, fluff. But our synthesized sources, and this is a really high-level guide to achieving native-like fluency, they prove the exact opposite. Small talk is the necessary social lubrication that comes before every single meaningful interaction.
It's the handshake of the language. I like that.
It really is.
So our mission today, based on this excellent material, is to completely break down that fear of improvisation, that fear of information overload. We are giving you a simple 3-stage pattern you can follow immediately.
Right.
You don't need to be witty. You just need a reliable, predictable script that functions as a bridge.
And that's the core thesis. That's what we really want you to take away from this. If you approach small talk not as this chaotic, spontaneous, scary event, but as a structured, predictable exchange with a clear beginning, middle, and end, all that performance anxiety just vanishes.
And then what?
Well, then you can focus your mental bandwidth on the nuances, the polish, all the C2 level details we'll be covering later on.
Okay, let's unpack this structure then, because I think understanding the skeleton makes the whole body less intimidating. Our sources boil small talk down into 3 logical and universally predictable stages.
Yes, it's almost geological in its predictability, as the source puts it.
I love that.
That's a great analogy, isn't it? It's a foundational process. So the 3 stages are the opening, keeping it going, and the closing.
Simple as that.
The simplicity is its strength. If you treat small talk as 3 successive, low-stakes micro goals just starting, then just maintaining for maybe 3 turns and then just exiting gracefully, it completely removes the pressure of having to manage this long, draining conversation.
Okay, so stage 1, the opening. If the goal isn't to be a stand-up comedian, what exactly are the criteria for a successful launch?
The criteria are pretty simple. It has to be short, it has to be safe, and it has to be connected to the immediate environment or the shared situation.
Okay.
And here's the key insight that separates basic small talk from advanced. It's the recognition that originality is often, it's counterproductive.
That's so counterintuitive, isn't it? You think you need to be clever.
Everyone thinks that. But advanced small talk relies on shared, predictable formulas. And it's because those formulas minimize the cognitive load on the other person.
That makes perfect sense. If I have to mentally process some complex, original question, my brain is already slightly stressed out.
Exactly.
But if you ask me about the weather or the queue we're in, my brain automatically knows the 3 safe responses. We're building a very familiar wooden bridge, not a bespoke steel cantilever.
Precisely. So we need to analyze the specific, reliable building blocks. The sources detail 3 very common, very safe opening types.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first, and maybe the most common, is the question about the situation. This links directly to the location or the logistics you both currently share.
So like this line is long.
Exactly. Standing in a long queue, you might observe the immediate shared frustration. Busy in here today, isn't it? Or if you're both at an event, waiting for it to start. Have you been waiting long for the doors to open?
They're neutral, they're immediately relevant.
And they're designed to elicit a really easy, non-personal affirmation or maybe a light comment.
Okay, what's the second type?
The second is the simple comment, which is often even lower stakes because it doesn't even technically require a verbal response. A nod of agreement is enough. This usually relates to the environment.
The weather.
The temperature. A simple statement like, it's freezing in this office, or the traffic was absolutely awful this morning.
And why does that work so well?
The comment works because it invites agreement, I know, right? Or a related parallel comment like, tell me about it, my train was stuck for 20 minutes. It doesn't ask for a direct informational answer. It's a very gentle invitation.
Okay, and the third type?
And the third type is the most direct social acknowledgement. The classic simple greeting plus a question.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty much. Hi, how's your day going so far? Or something a bit more colloquial like, morning, all good.
So what's the advanced analysis here? Why do these 3 simple things work at a C2 level?
What's important here is that these openings gently invite conversation without demanding intimacy or a complicated response. You've signaled, I am socially available, but you've also given the other person a graceful exit if they just respond with a neutral one-word answer.
So a successful opening is one that opens the door.
But doesn't force anyone through it. That's the perfect way to put it.
Okay, so once that opening is accepted and you get a response, you are in stage 2. And this feels like the danger zone. I think the biggest challenge for C2 learners here is that they often master stage 1, but then they fail to transition. They freeze after the initial exchange.
Right. It's the now what moment. If you ask, traffic was awful, and they say, it was a nightmare, and you just stand there nodding.
Awkward silence.
You've signaled to them, intentionally or not, that you're not willing to put in the effort required for a real exchange. Stage 2 is where advanced learners really differentiate themselves. It's about demonstrating sustained, yet still low-stakes interest.
So, how do you do that? What are the core methods for maintaining that momentum without turning it into an interrogation?
The sources outline 3 core interconnected tools. First, asking follow-up questions, and we mean the detailed ones.
Yep.
Second, reacting with short, natural affirming phrases, which we'll call backchanneling later. And third, sharing a little bit about yourself. That's the principle of reciprocity.
Let's work through a scenario to demonstrate how these tools interact. Let's say I open with a comment about my commute, and the other person responds, yeah, the train was delayed again this morning.
Okay. A non-advanced speaker might just say, oh, that's bad luck. And the conversation dies.
Right.
An advanced speaker recognizes the fuel in the detail they just gave you. Delayed. They immediately ask a follow-up question. Oh no, how long were you stuck for?
This shows you actually processed the information they shared.
And you could also pivot to empathy, couldn't you? Deepen the connection by validating their struggle. Something like, that's so frustrating. Does that happen often? Yes. Now, you're not just talking about a one-off delay. You're talking about a systemic problem, a shared struggle.
Which leads directly to the third tool.
Sharing. Exactly. If they feel comfortable, they'll likely elaborate on that. And this is your cue to demonstrate reciprocity. You build that rapport by saying something like, same here. My line's a disaster at the moment. You found a connection point.
I want to spend a moment on that reciprocity point. Why is sharing so crucial, even in minimal small talk? It feels a bit vulnerable sometimes.
Well, it connects to trust and vulnerability, as you said.
Yeah.
Every piece of information someone shares, even just the fact that their train line is bad, it has a small social cost, they are investing in the conversation.
Right. They're putting a little chip on the table.
Exactly. And if you don't invest back by sharing a comparable detail, the relationship becomes asymmetrical. It feels like they're giving a presentation and you're just judging it.
And nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. Reciprocity maintains balance. It signals, I trust you enough to share this minor detail, and I recognize the investment you just made.
So that's the engine of stage 2. Demonstrating you paid attention, you validated their feeling, and you are willing to invest equally, however slightly, in the conversation's survival.
And that brings us to the final stage, the crucial yet so often overlooked clean exit.
The awkward fade out, social kryptonite.
It is. After you've established this pleasant rapport, you absolutely must use a predictable, polite formula to signal the exchange is ending. You don't want to ruin the goodwill by just walking away, or worse, waiting until the conversation dies a silent, painful death.
The advanced technique is to use clear verbal cues that allow both parties to disengage smoothly. It's like a verbal summary and a wave goodbye all in one.
Exactly. You signal that the small talk session is complete, and you do it gracefully. And the timing is key here, too.
When do you do it?
Generally, you initiate the close immediately after a natural lull, or after one person offers a kind of closing statement about their next activity, like, well, I need to finish this report now.
Okay, so the source material must have some specific phrases for this. These are scripts you can literally just memorize and use.
Absolutely. You might start with a transition phrase that signals closure. Something like, anyway, or right, or well.
Okay, so anyway.
I better get back to it.
Yeah.
This works perfectly if you are the one who is busy. You're taking responsibility for ending it.
What about if you sense the other person is busy?
Then you could offer them the grace of leaving first, which is highly polite. You'd say, right, I should let you go. You are positioning yourself as the facilitator of their freedom. It's a very C2 level move.
I like that. And then what?
Then, regardless of who is leaving, you summarize the tone of the exchange positively. Well, it was nice chatting. This reaffirms the connection. And notice the past tense. It was nice, reinforcing that the conversation is now complete.
And finally, if it's someone you'll see again.
A simple sign-off. I'll see you later. Or the more casual, see you around. You've created a loop that implies a future friendly interaction.
So the overarching lesson here is that the most intimidating parts of social interaction are actually the most predictable and easily scripted.
That's it. Mastering this 3-stage formula frees up your cognitive energy to focus on the actual content once the small talk is done.
Okay, So if we've nailed the basic formula for starting, maintaining, and stopping, let's look at how that formula changes based on where you are.
Exactly.
That predictable script needs contextual adjustment. This is where we move beyond generic greetings to advanced openings that tailor your launch to the specific environment.
And this transition moves us from fundamental competence to what you could call situational fluency. It demonstrates that you don't just speak the language, but you also understand the subtle, unwritten social contracts of that specific environment, be it an office, a conference, or a pub.
Let's start with the workplace, specifically an informal context with colleagues you know reasonably well.
Right. In the informal workplace, you share history, internal jokes, and most importantly, you share organizational stress. Small talk here is used to build rapport, meaning it can be light, friendly, and even a little bit playful, as long as it stays professional.
So how do you do that?
The key is tapping into that shared stress. The source material really emphasizes openings that rely on mutual struggle. Phrases like, surviving the morning so far.
I like that. It assumes the morning is difficult.
It creates an instant low-stakes bond of sympathy. Or, more simply, you look busy, crazy day.
The example from the source I really appreciate is the nuance in the phrase, did you manage to escape on time yesterday?
That phrase is brilliant, isn't it? It's slightly hyperbolic. We all struggle to leave on time. And it invites a brief narrative about their work-life balance without being intrusive.
Right. It's not how is your work-life balance, which is a huge personal question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It builds rapport by playfully acknowledging the demands of the job. And it's a quick, friendly way to check in on their general well-being without getting too personal. It's an informal icebreaker that relies on that shared organizational knowledge.
I remember an awkward moment early in my career where I asked a colleague, how was your holiday? Right after a massive project deadline, he just looked at me blankly and said, I didn't have a holiday.
Ouch.
It was a social misstep. So using phrases tied to the daily shared reality, like the traffic or the workload, is so much safer, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Small talk is almost always about navigating the immediate present or the very recent past. The phrases we mentioned, like surviving the morning, manage the immediate tension. They create an opportunity for a brief, appropriate exchange that deepens the colleague relationship without invading their privacy.
Okay, so now let's contrast that informal shared struggle chat with a formal networking setting. A conference, a client lunch, meeting a senior executive for the first time.
A completely different world. Here, the language has to immediately signal respect, a bit of distance, and a focused professional interest.
The tone shifts from playful to polite and open-ended. The conversation should focus on the business at hand or their relationship to the professional environment, not their personal schedule.
Exactly. This is where we use polished, open-ended phrases designed to gather professional context. The classic is, how's your week going so far?
Simple, open.
And it invites a professional summary of their activities. It keeps the focus on work accomplishments, not their weekend plans.
And if you know they're involved in something specific, let's say you're at a project kickoff.
Then you can show you've done your homework. Have you been involved in this project long? This demonstrates that you're contextually aware.
And of course, the ultimate conference or event opener.
Is this your first time at this event? It's the perfect low-stakes logistical question that immediately gives them a narrative frame. Why are they there? What are their expectations? Are they a veteran or a newcomer?
So the crucial contrast here is that formal phrases maintain a necessary professional distance. You're not trying to bond over shared misery like with a colleague.
No, you're signaling interest and approachability while respecting professional boundaries. You're gathering professional information first, rapport second.
Okay, so what about the third context? Social or casual settings. Parties, community events, even queuing at the supermarket.
These demand highly flexible phrases that focus on connecting the person back to the reason they are present in that space.
The best phrases here are designed to hook a mini narrative out of the person you're speaking to.
Totally. If you're at a party where you know the host, how do you know the host? It's a universally effective phrase.
Why?
Because it gives the other person a clear, safe narrative path to follow. Oh, we worked together 10 years ago. Or, I'm the host's cousin. It's a story they've probably told before, so it's easy for them.
What if you're somewhere new? A new restaurant or an exhibition?
Have you been here before? Works beautifully. It creates an instant dynamic.
Yeah.
One of you's the expert, one is the novice. It gives you a topic, the place itself.
And the source material mentioned one phrase that it called very flexible.
Ah, yes, my favorite for its sheer utility. What brings you here today?
It works everywhere.
everywhere. A charity event, a concert, a lecture, even an unexpectedly busy shopping center. It asks for a brief story about their intention, giving them total control over how much personal detail they want to share.
So the core takeaway from this contextual analysis, the thing that really brings it to a C2 level, is that your questions should be narrative hooks.
Yes.
They should open doors for the listener to tell a brief, self-contained story. They should never, ever be answerable with a simple conversation ending yes or no.
Exactly. You're not looking for data, you're looking for a story. And that brings us to the next section where we can really see this in action. We're going to move the theory into high-definition practical application.
Okay.
We're going to isolate the moment when a conversation dies and analyze the 5 specific changes that can resurrect it, turning a dead exchange into an effective, friendly one.
This analysis of the coffee machine scenario is essential, I think, because it demonstrates that mastery is in the execution of these small things, not the invention of grand, clever statements.
It's all the details.
Okay. Let's visualize the scene. 2 colleagues, person A and person B, are waiting for the machine to grind their beans. We'll start with the bad small talk example. It's awkward, but painfully common.
Okay. I'll be person A, the initiator, and you can be person B.
Ready? Morning.
Busy.
Yeah.
Right? See you later.
Yeah, you too. Ah, that silence is just... It feels like a social failure, even though it was maybe 3 seconds long. But what specifically failed there? Was it the question or the response?
Well, the problem was twofold, and this is the C2 analysis point. First, the question, busy, is just linguistically lazy.
Harsh, but fair.
It only asks for a 1-syllable response. It gives the recipient absolutely no narrative hook. And second, and this is crucial, the initiator, person A, failed to recognize the opportunity cost. Person B gave them a tiny piece of information.
Yeah.
Right.
A positive response.
And person A failed to invest any energy to follow up on it. The source material calls this conversational negligence.
I love that term.
Technically, nothing was rude, but the lack of follow-through killed any potential connection and leaves both people feeling slightly deflated and awkward.
Okay, so let's inject the principles we've been talking about and restart that engine. Same setting, same people. We'll demonstrate the power of the 5 small changes.
Okay, I'm person A again, initiating.
And I'm B.
Morning.
Busy day ahead.
Yeah, pretty full on, actually. I've got back-to-back calls with the international team until 3 this afternoon.
Wow, that sounds intense. Is that all related to the Q3 launch strategy?
Mostly, yes. It's all about harmonizing the messaging for Europe and Asia, which, as you probably know, is a complete headache in terms of regulatory hurdles.
I see. That makes sense. I heard Sarah mention the compliance team was running ragged over that last week. It sounds like you're trying to herd cats. What about you? Quiet day, or is this your one moment of peace?
Somewhere in between. I'm trying to clear my inbox before I head into that budget review session later. It feels like the calm before the storm.
Smart. You have to create those windows of calm for yourself. I always say I'll do that, and then I get sucked into the vortex of reply all.
I know that vortex well.
Anyway,
No.
I should let you get to those international calls before someone in Germany starts wondering where you are.
Good luck with the messaging harmonization.
Thanks. Hope the budget review doesn't completely derail your afternoon. See you later.
See the massive difference. It's night and day. We established a friendly, functional, and even insightful connection in under a minute.
Just by applying structure and paying attention to the details. Okay, let's methodically break down the 5 levers we pulled that made that second conversation so much more successful.
Okay, first and foremost, we executed a more open question. We changed busy to busy day ahead.
It's such a subtle shift.
It's tiny, but it prompts a descriptive answer. Because I prompted you, you provided the detail, back-to-back calls until 3. And that detail is the essential fuel for the rest of the conversation.
Okay, what was second?
Secondly, there was the immediate follow-up, which shows the kind of sustained attention that defines advanced listening. Is that all one project? This signals that I wasn't just waiting for my turn to talk. I absorbed and processed the information you just gave me.
And that leads directly to the third, which felt like the most powerful rapport builder in that professional setting.
Showing knowledge or contextual awareness. By saying, I heard Sarah mention the compliance team was running ragged over that, I'm acknowledging our shared world and implicitly validating the difficulty of your task. It says, I recognize the context of your struggle.
That acknowledgement is huge. It moves the conversation from 2 random people waiting for coffee to 2 involved colleagues who understand the organizational pressures.
Exactly.
Fourth, you introduced returning the question. What about you? ? quiet day, or is this your one moment of peace?
This is absolutely vital for conversational balance. It stops the interaction from feeling like an interrogation and gives the other person control and the opportunity to reciprocate.
And finally, the exit.
A light joke and empathy in the closing. Good luck with the messaging harmonization. And your response, hope the budget review doesn't completely derail your afternoon. You're ending on a friendly, empathetic, and memorable note. You're confirming that the relationship is positive right before you disengage.
The synthesis here is crucial for you, the listener. Success in small talk isn't about the originality of your comments.
Not at all.
It's about the cumulative effect of small, attentive follow-ups. It's about demonstrating that you are present, that you're listening, and that you are willing to validate the other person's reality.
And that's a perfect transition. We've covered the structural anatomy. Now we can move into the C2 level polish, the subtle nonverbal and social skills that make your English sound truly natural, confident, and nuanced.
This is the difference between speaking correctly and speaking fluently.
It really is. This is the music of the language, not just the lyrics.
Yeah.
If you master the polish, your actual content can be minimal, but the connection you make will be maximal.
So where do we start with this polish?
Let's start with active listening. For advanced communicators, listening is an active performance. It's about showing that you are following, not just remaining politely silent.
Because if you're silent.
If you're silent, the speaker risks feeling nervous. They might start wondering if you've stopped listening, or if they've said something wrong.
So we need to master those essential backchannel expressions that English speakers just sprinkle into every interaction. They're like conversational punctuation marks that signal engagement.
Yes, we're talking about simple affirmations that often occur mid-sentence from the listener. Things like, right,
Yeah.
I know, or expressions of sympathy, surprise, or realization. Oh, wow. Seriously, no way.
Let's address a potential pitfall that the source material identified, the phrase, I know. If I use it flatly, can't it sound dismissive, like I'm cutting the speaker off or suggesting I already knew what they were saying?
That's a highly insightful question, and it's why this C2 nuance matters so much. Yes, if I know is delivered flatly, or if it's followed by immediate silence, it can sound arrogant. But native speakers mitigate this risk in two ways: tone and follow-up.
Okay, talk me through how tone saves it.
A supportive I know uses a slightly softer, slightly stretched intonation, and is often accompanied by a head nod. It indicates empathy and shared experience. For example, oh, I know.
I hear that. It translates as, I empathize with that feeling.
Exactly. Compare that to a dismissive flat I know, which translates as, get to the point, I've heard this. The difference is entirely tonal.
It shifts from intellectual agreement to emotional agreement.
That's the perfect way to phrase it. Now let's run a longer scenario to show how backchanneling supports a speaker. Imagine speaker A is explaining a frustrating project. So they changed the specs again right when we were supposed to finalize the designs, which meant we had to pull an all-nighter.
I'd jump in there with, oh, wow, seriously.
Perfect. You're signaling surprise and engagement. Then speaker A continues. Yeah. And the worst part was that the team lead, who asked us to do the late shift, didn't even show up until noon the next day.
I'd use that soft tone here.
I know. That is so frustrating.
You're signaling empathy and shared experience. Then A says, it really was a nightmare. I nearly missed my connecting flight to the trade show later that morning.
No way. Did you at least manage to get a coffee before running for the gate?
Yes. A humorous follow-up question tied to a small detail. Now notice in that exchange, you, speaker B, sounded intensely engaged. You didn't need to dominate the conversation at all.
I only used 5 or 6 words.
Exactly. Delivered with the right tone and the right timing to make the speaker feel completely heard.
Okay, so building on tone, let's focus on intonation specifically. This is often the most neglected element for advanced learners. The source material is clear. How you deliver the message matters almost as much as the vocabulary you choose.
Oh, absolutely. If your words are perfect, but your rhythm is flat, you communicate stiffness or lack of interest. So what's the right musical structure for friendly small talk?
We need a warmer tone on greetings. We need a dynamic rhythm and variation in speech to avoid a robotic monotone. And most critically, we need rising intonation at the end of friendly questions.
Why is that rising intonation so important for questions, especially in small talk?
Rising intonation, where your pitch goes up at the end of the phrase, signals openness and invitation. It transforms a neutral query into a friendly gesture. Let's use that simple phrase we discussed earlier. Nice weekend.
Okay, if I say it flatly, with a falling or level pitch like this. Nice weekend.
That communicates boredom, detachment, or obligation. The emotional subtext is, I have to ask this, but I don't really care. And the recipient will likely shut down and respond with a minimal, fine.
But if I use a natural, friendly intonation with a slight noticeable lift at the end, it sounds like this. Nice weekend.
The intention is completely different. That rising music signals, I am interested in your reply and I am inviting you to share a story. It's an invitation, not a command.
So the advice for you, the listener, is to literally copy the music, the up and down cadence of the language when you're practicing.
Yes, not just reciting the words on the page.
Okay, so the final piece of this polish section is about boundaries.
Yes. True advanced communicators understand that social fluency is as much about knowing what to avoid as what to say. Small talk is absolutely the wrong venue for complex, high-stakes personal discussions.
And we must always remember this is culturally dependent, but in the vast majority of English-speaking workplace or initial social settings, there is a set of generally high-risk topics to avoid.
The source material confirms the major landmines. Religion and politics are highly charged and should be reserved for much closer relationships.
Okay.
Discussions about money, salary, or personal debt are often considered taboo, and you should avoid overly personal questions about relationships, sex, or highly private health issues.
Because these topics defeat the entire purpose of small talk.
They do. The purpose is to build low-stakes rapport. These topics risk discomfort, conflict, or forcing the other person into an inappropriate level of disclosure.
But the real C2 skill is what happens when the other person initiates one of these unwelcome topics. You need the ability to execute a soft deflection without sounding rude or argumentative.
This is a critical skill.
Yeah.
And the deflection strategies rely on what the source calls shifting language, phrases that acknowledge the topic while simultaneously pivoting away from it.
Okay, give me an example. Someone brings up a complicated political stance at the coffee machine.
You can use a high formality deflection. That is certainly a complicated issue with many angles. Anyway, I was curious about the attendance here today. Have you seen the list of speakers?
So you validated their point with complicated issue, and then you immediately deployed an anyway to shift focus.
Exactly. For a less hostile, but maybe just uncomfortable personal question, you can be slightly more casual. I'm never quite sure what to think about that, to be honest. By the way, speaking of complicated things, how's your project with the Boston team coming along?
So those transitional phrases, anyway. By the way, speaking of which, and maybe to shift gears, they are your polite escape tools.
They are. They signal, I am respecting your boundary, and I am steering us back to safe, productive ground. The key is the speed of the transition. You need to pivot the listener's focus quickly before they can elaborate on the unwelcome topic.
Okay, we've covered so much. The structure, the context, the detailed phrases, the conversational mechanics, and the social boundaries.
The final step is to shift all this knowledge from your memory banks into muscle memory. Because knowledge without immediate application just remains trivia.
So we want you, the listener, to engage in a mini practice task right now. Think about a real-life small talk situation that occurs frequently in your week.
It could be anywhere. Maybe it's waiting for the lift at your workplace. Maybe it's the parent pickup line at school. Or perhaps it's the checkout queue at the grocery store.
Identify that specific scenario. And now the challenge is to prepare 3 structured components for that situation. This is all about preparation, not improvisation.
Right. First, prepare one opening line. Make it open-ended and connected to the environment. For the workplace lift, perhaps it's, long day today. The office seems empty.
Okay. Second, prepare one follow-up question. If they confirm it's a long day, you might follow up with a specific detail. Oh, is it always this quiet on Fridays, or are people sneaking out early?
Good. You're linking back to the environment and the shared organizational context.
And third, prepare one closing line. Your clean exit strategy. Something like, well, it was nice chatting with you. Anyway, I'd better let you get on with your day. See you around.
The rationale here, the deep insight, is that rehearsing these 3 small, critical pieces dramatically lowers the cognitive energy you need during a live social exchange.
Right. If you know your opening, your follow-up, and your exit.
You can use your brain power to focus entirely on the subtle feedback, their tone, their body language, their backchanneling, which is the true mark of C2 mastery. So we really encourage you to pause this deep dive, create those 3 sentences, and say them out loud right now, focusing on that friendly, rising intonation.
Okay, let's quickly synthesize the major elements we've covered in this deep dive into the anatomy of advanced small talk.
We established the simple 3 stages, the predictable opening, the follow-up driven middle, and the clean, structured closing. This formula provides the scaffolding.
We analyzed how to tailor your communication using advanced natural phrases specific to different contexts. Informal work, formal networking, and casual social settings, reinforcing that situational awareness is paramount.
We deconstructed the difference between good and bad small talk, showing that conversational success is determined by the cumulative effect of small, attentive follow-ups and showing knowledge, not by the brilliance of the initial statement.
And finally, we detailed the C2 polish, the absolute necessity of active listening through empathetic backchanneling, mastering the music of positive intonation, and knowing when and how to gracefully change the subject to respect social boundaries.
And that really covers the whole system.
We've reached the end of this dive, and I want to leave you with the ultimate goal. Small talk is not about being brilliant or witty or impressive. That goal is paralyzing.
The real goal is far more manageable and far more useful. It is about being pleasant, interested, and easy to talk to.
That's it.
You are constructing a series of small, low-stakes interactions that signal your social availability and your willingness to engage. The true mastery lies in the structure, not in the spontaneity.
And the insight we really hope you take away is this. Advanced small talk is a strategic tool. The structure isn't just about sounding polite, it's about freeing up your mental bandwidth. By mastering the predictable parts, the openings, the closings, you conserve your cognitive energy.
And that conserved energy can then be used for the real content when the small talk ends, whether that's a presentation, a negotiation, or a complex discussion. The structural mastery allows you to be rested and ready for genuine engagement. The goal is connection, not content, and the method is structure.
Use that structure, practice those phrases, and really focus on the music of the English language when you hear it. You are now fully equipped with the anatomy of advanced small talk.
We thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we encourage you to practice these new skills immediately. The next time you grab a coffee, make it count.
See you next time. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is the show where we take a whole stack of information, really dig into it, and pull out the most important, actionable knowledge. Our goal is to have you walk away feeling like you really get it, and that you're ready to use what you've learned right away.
Today, we're going a step beyond just, vocabulary lists and grammar exercises. We're talking about a tactical linguistic upgrade.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, the focus is small talk. But, and this is the important part, it's not the beginner's version. We are aiming squarely at the C2 level.
So mastery, basically.
Exactly. The mastery of nuance, of rhythm, the kind of social fluency that just makes you sound genuinely and effortlessly natural.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit, because I think for so many of our listeners, the real challenge isn't, remembering the difference between past simple and present perfect.
Right.
The challenge is getting through that 5-minute, really low-stakes chat at a conference or maybe at a neighbor's party without that feeling of intense, crushing anxiety. So we're really moving beyond, hello, how are you? We're digging into the architecture of advanced, rhythmic, confident conversation.
Precisely. The source material we're working from today is basically a practical masterclass in conversational engineering.
Yeah.
It lays out a blueprint for refining your small talk skills across 3 really essential stages.
3 stages, okay.
Yeah, and it includes high-level linguistic upgrades and even specific techniques like shadowing. So the whole mission for us today is to give you a reliable structure, a framework.
So you're not just winging it every time.
Right. The idea is you can stop dedicating all your brain power to the big problem of how does this conversation even work? And you can start focusing all that energy on the little things, the micro problems.
Like your tone of voice or picking the right idiom?
Exactly. Tone, idiom selection, pronunciation, all the stuff that actually makes you sound like you.
You've already done the really hard work of learning the language. Now we're just tackling the invisible social physics that, surrounds the language. So let's dive in. I think the single biggest thing that contributes to conversational anxiety is that fear of the unknown, that horrible moment where you think, okay, what do I say next?
The dreaded silence.
Yeah, the silence. And that's why having a foundational, really simple structure that kind of underpins all effective small talk, that's the ultimate anxiety prevention tool.
It's an operational safety net. It really is. If you know how every interaction is supposed to flow, if you have a map, you're never scrambling for your bearings in the middle of a sentence.
You always know where you are.
You know exactly where you are, and maybe more importantly, you know how to get out with grace.
Okay, so this blueprint, you said it's elegantly simple. It's broken into 3 stages.
Just 3. Stage 1 is the opening.
The beginning.
Right, the ignition phase. Think of it as the verbal equivalent of a social handshake. It's designed to be really low stakes. It's usually dependent on the context you're in, and it requires like minimal commitment from either person.
And then stage 2.
Stage 2 is keeping it going. This is the engine room. This is where you actually develop that initial idea, you sustain the interaction, and most importantly, you show that you're a high-level active listener.
How do you do that?
Through strategic follow-up questions and what we'll call short reactions.
Okay, and then the final stage, the exit.
Stage 3, closing. This is the landing phase. It's how you end the conversation politely, maintaining the positive social dynamic you just built up.
And you avoid that sudden awkward crash where the conversation just sort of dies and everyone feels uncomfortable.
Really prevent the fade out. Exactly.
I totally agree on the idea of delegating the macro task of structure. It's brilliant. But let me ask a kind of a probing question here.
Go for it.
Won't a learner risk sounding, robotic if they rely too heavily on these fixed structures? How do you inject your own personality while you're following a blueprint?
That is a critical question. And it really speaks directly to the C2 level challenge. Because you're right. At lower levels, say A2 or B1, using a fixed phrase can sound very robotic.
Right. Memorize.
But at the C2 level, your challenge isn't correctness anymore. It's using the structure so often that it becomes an unconscious habit. It's muscle memory.
So when the structure becomes automatic,
your brain frees up. It's free to focus on the delivery, the humor, the timing, your tone, picking that perfect little idiom. You're using the blueprint to facilitate your personality, not to dictate it.
Okay, that makes sense. So the structure lets you kind of offload the hard work of the overall flow, so you can focus all your energy on the subtle language, the rhythm, the tone, which is what makes the whole thing feel less forced.
It moves from a conscious, clunky effort to an unconscious, smooth rhythm. Think about it. If you're constantly thinking, how do I get out of this conversation? How do I end this? You're never going to choose the perfect little phrase or remember to use a contraction.
Your brain is too busy panicking.
It's in panic mode. Without this foundational structure, every conversation feels like you're trying to navigate an open ocean without a compass. But with the blueprint, you know exactly where you are, you know where you need to go, and that allows you to use all those advanced phrases we're about to talk about with precision instead of just, throwing them out there and hoping they stick.
It's about being deliberate.
It is. It turns a really stressful social requirement into a structured, low-stakes game that you actually know the rules to.
Okay, so the structure is the engine, but I guess these phrases are the fuel.
That's a great way to put it.
So let's transition into the specific language you need for each stage, because having the structure is only half the battle. The other half is sounding like you mean it.
And sounding like it just rolls off the tongue naturally. And this is where we need to introduce the concept of shadowing.
Okay, I've heard this term a lot.
Right. And shadowing isn't just about memorizing sentences. It's about copying the pronunciation, the speed, the rhythm.
Yeah.
Everything. You're copying it exactly. And for C1, C2 proficiency, it's paramount.
Okay, so can you elaborate on the practical mechanics of that for our listeners? Because, like I said, it gets mentioned all the time, but it's rarely explained in detail. What am I actually doing?
Of course. So shadowing works by training your mouth muscles to perform the movements of native speech patterns without you needing to consciously think about it.
So it's physical.
It's very physical. You listen to a short piece of audio, let's say a sentence or two of small talk, and then immediately, either at the same time or right after, you try to reproduce that sound exactly. You mirror the intonation, the stress, the pauses.
And what kind of material should I be using for this?
You want to choose material that's authentic, everyday dialogue, like the examples we're going through today. And then you just repeat that sentence 10, 20, even 30 times.
40 times. Wow.
Yeah. You are essentially bypassing your internal translation loop. You're training your mouth, your ear, and your brain all at the same time to internalize the physicality of native speech. And it's that physical muscle memory that so often separates the advanced student from the truly fluent speaker.
All right, so let's look at some practical opening lines. We can start with phrases that kind of use the immediate context and then move toward the more advanced, natural-sounding stuff. These are perfect for bridging that initial awkward silence.
Right, and we can often categorize these openers by context. So if you're in a professional queue or maybe a waiting area, you'd use what we call universal context openers. They're standard, they're polite. Things like, busy day so far.
Or have you been waiting long?
Exactly. Or is this your first time here? They require almost no emotional commitment, but they open the door.
And this is where the C2 upgrade really starts to show itself, isn't it? In the slightly more advanced, more colloquial examples that immediately signal you're a competent speaker because they carry a bit of cultural flavor.
Yes.
I'm thinking of two specifically from our source material, surviving the morning so far, and what brings you here today.
Surviving the morning so far it's a beautiful little piece of English social engineering.
Chuckles, how so?
It immediately establishes this sense of shared, low-stakes commiseration. It's a nod to the universal truth that mornings can be a bit of a slog, and that creates instant rapport.
And what brings you here today? That one feels so much better than why are you here?
No, worlds better. It's far more elegant and nuanced. Why are you here?
Sure.
Can sound a bit accusatory, a bit direct, but what brings you here today implies there's a shared context, a mutual purpose, and it's just polite. It's the difference between asking for a reason and asking for a story.
So we're not just copying the words. You said before we have to copy the music of the sentence. Let's get a bit more technical about that music, because that's what shadowing is really targeting. Absolutely. The rise and fall of the voice, the intonation, and where you put the stress on syllables carries immense contextual meaning in English. For instance, let's take that phrase. Is this your first time here?
Okay. If I, as a learner, deliver that phrase completely flat, every syllable with the same weight, it sounds rehearsed, almost demanding.
Exactly. But if you listen to a native speaker, the stress is almost always on first time. Is this your first time here? That stress indicates genuine, slightly curious interest. It highlights the newness of the experience.
And if you stress here instead.
Is this your first time here? It might sound like you're questioning their location. Like, are you sure you're in the right place? Rather than their experience. So copying that stress pattern through shadowing trains your ear to recognize the meaning that's conveyed by the sound pattern, not just the word order. The right rhythm turns a simple question into a really engaging opener.
Okay, so the door is open. We've used our opener. Now we need the tools to, deepen the conversation and show we're actually listening.
Right. And for that, we have two main tools: substantive follow-up questions and those crucial, short, fluent reactions.
Let's start with the follow-up questions.
The follow-up questions are the bridge. They're what moves the conversation from just surface-level contextual stuff to an actual exchange of ideas or stories. They show genuine engagement. So if someone mentions a challenging experience, you can use phrases like, "Oh, wow, how did that happen?"
Or, really, does that happen often?
Right. And probably the most proactive one is something like, "That sounds intense. How did it go in the end?" That one actively asks for a narrative conclusion. It shows you've really invested in their little story.
And I think the power of showing a shared experience can't be understated here. Using a phrase like, "Same here, actually, I've had a similar experience." That just immediately builds a connection. It validates what the other person said.
It creates a little bit of intimacy in a very low-stakes way. Now let's talk about the conversational shortcuts, the short reactions.
Yeah.
At a C2 level in English, these are the absolute sounds of fluency. They're little bits of what linguists call lexical chunking that let you participate dynamically without having to construct a full, complex sentence every single time.
And they often replace those long, complex sentences, which is why learners should really prioritize them. We're talking about things like round.
Exactly.
I know what you mean.
Or, yeah, that makes sense. They are the punctuation marks of a fluent conversation.
Let's focus on one that I think can be tricky for learners. Tell me about it.
Ah, yes. This phrase can cause some cognitive dissonance for advanced learners because if you translate it literally, it sounds like an invitation to keep talking. Please give me more information.
But that's not what it means at all, usually.
In this context, its function is almost entirely as an emphatic agreement. It's commiseration. It means I agree with you completely. I share your pain or your perspective.
So if I say to you, the traffic this morning was terrible, and you respond with, "Tell me about it," you are not asking me to launch into a 15-minute monologue about traffic patterns.
Precisely. I'm just confirming our shared experience, our shared empathy. The contrast is really clear. If you tell me, "I just finished reading this incredible new book, and I genuinely want more information," I might respond with the literal meaning. "Oh, really? Tell me about it. What's it called?"
But in the context of a shared difficulty, it's 100% agreement.
Yes. And mastering that distinction, knowing when a phrase is functioning literally versus when it's functioning idiomatically, that is a huge cornerstone of C2 conversational fluency.
All right, let's move on to what might be the most underrated part of small talk. The closing. We talked earlier about how the exit is critical for social dynamics, but let's elaborate on why these closures are so valuable.
Closings are crucial because they manage expectations and they maintain the positive impression you've worked to build. An abrupt ending just feels rude. It prioritizes your needs over the listener's comfort.
So these advanced closings, they use what you called,
Discourse transition phrases and mitigation markers. They're just ways to signal your intent gently. They prevent that conversational crash.
So by using these specific closing phrases, you're making sure you always leave a positive, polished final impression, even if you're the one cutting the conversation short.
We can even break down the phrases from the source material by their function. First, you need a transition marker to signal the end is coming. Something like, anyway, or well.
And then after that comes a soft reason for leaving, mitigation.
Exactly. This would be something like, anyway, I'd better get going. That implies a mild, necessary duty you have to attend to.
Or the really polite version, well, I should let you get back to it.
That's a highly deferential phrasing. It frames your departure not as your own personal need, but as respect for their time, which is just very sophisticated social intelligence.
Okay, so after the reason, you need the positive summation.
Yes, this validates the whole interaction. It was really nice chatting, or I enjoyed our conversation.
And then you wrap it all up with the future-oriented sign-off.
Which is just a low-commitment, friendly farewell. Hope the rest of your day goes smoothly, or the classic ubiquitous see you around. By combining one phrase from each of those 4 categories, you can construct a flawless, polite exit every single time. The structure is your safety net, and the sophisticated language makes the exit feel perfectly smooth.
So we have all the individual pieces. Now let's see them actually deployed dynamically, because small talk changes so much depending on the context.
Drastically.
And by looking at these 3 distinct real-world scenarios, we can analyze the specific phrases people choose, and more importantly, why they work in that particular environment.
This is where the architecture really comes alive. The language you'd use at a professional conference signals efficiency and purpose.
Whereas the language at a neighbor's BBQ signals community.
Community, warmth, connection. And the language you'd use on a train just signals transience, a brief, shared moment.
Okay, scenario 1, the professional conference. This whole situation is defined by a temporary shared purpose. The goal is often rapid, polite information exchange, maybe some networking.
It has to be efficient. So let's imagine a little snippet of this conversation. Maybe 2 people, A and B, are grabbing a coffee. A could start with something like, I don't think we've met properly. I'm Alex from the London office.
Okay, straight in. Opening an identity in one. So B would say, oh, nice to meet you, Alex. I'm Chris from the Berlin team.
Then A can use a classic context question. Is this your first time at this conference? Identifying that shared experience.
B could reply, it is, actually. I came specifically for that keynote on AI implementation.
Perfect. That gives A something to latch onto. Same here, actually. I thought Dr. Chen's point about legacy systems was spot on. Did you find the data analysis compelling?
So now we're in the keeping it going phase. Shared experience and then a follow-up question. B could say, I did. It sounded intense. How do you see that impacting your department back in London?
And that's a great question. It deepens the conversation. Now, A can give a bit of detail, but also signal a close. Well, we've got back-to-back meetings all week discussing the rollout, to be honest. It's a pretty full-on schedule.
And there are those C2 upgrades we talked about. Back-to-back meetings, pretty full-on.
Right. And then the closing sequence. But I won't keep you from your coffee. Anyway, I should probably get back to my notes. Hope to see you in the next session.
And B just says, likewise. See you around, Alex.
That whole snippet is so eliminating. The flow is fast. Introductions, background, shared experience, a quick opinion on a talk, and then a really clean exit.
The key insight here is that the conversation is, well, it's transactional, but it's polite. It serves the professional purpose of networking. And that 4-part close was perfect. Transition marker, anyway, soft reason, get back to my notes, and the future-oriented sign-off, see you in the next session.
The language reflects professionalism and efficiency. It's clean.
All right, now let's contrast that very professional setting with the social vibe of a neighbor's BBQ. The goal here is totally different.
Completely. You're not networking. You're establishing community, trust, connection. Efficiency is replaced by warmth.
And the topics need to be much safer, centered on your shared location. So let's imagine this dynamic. The host, A, sees a new face. B.
A would start with something welcoming. Hey, glad you could make it. Have you managed to find a drink? It's a greeting and an act of hospitality.
B says, I have, thank you. It's a great party. I don't think we've met. I'm Sarah.
So A can respond, nice to meet you, Sarah. I'm David. Have you met many people here yet?
This is a great question because it checks on their social integration. It shows you care if they're comfortable.
Right. And B can say, not too many yet, still finding my feet. I've only been living on Elm Street just over 6 months now, establishing that personal context. That's the perfect opening for A. 6 months? Welcome. I know you mean it takes time. I've been here for years, but I still love how quiet the neighborhood is. Shared experience plus a light, non-controversial opinion.
And B can jump on that with one of our short reactions. Tell me about it. That's why we moved. It's lovely having the park so close, too.
And then A can close, but in a very different way. Absolutely. Anyway, I should probably go check on the grill before it turns to charcoal. A soft reason, but one that's tied to their role as host.
Followed by a hospitable closing.
Help yourself to food and drinks, and if you need anything, just shout. And B just says, thanks so much, David. Enjoy.
The key insight here is the focus on shared locality, non-controversial opinions, the quietness, the park. The use of tell me about it is perfect here as that commiserative agreement.
And the closure is so open and hospitable. It acknowledges the host's duties, check on the grill, but it passes the conversational baton to the whole social environment. It signals that the relationship can continue later without any pressure. The language is designed purely to welcome and include.
Okay, last one. This is the lowest stakes, but maybe the highest difficulty form of small talk.
The incidental conversation.
Yeah, on a train or in a queue, it's totally reliant on coincidence and a momentary interaction. The flow has to start with a small, shared event.
It has to leverage the immediate environment. So let's imagine there's someone nearby having a very loud phone call. Our two speakers, A and B, make eye contact.
A could start with a quiet, shared observation. Oh, wow. That sounds intense.
B can agree with a short reaction. Right. I know what you mean. Sometimes I think people forget they aren't in their living room.
So A could transition that into a classic opener.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, surviving the morning so far.
And B can give that standard short answer plus a detail. Not too bad, thanks. I'm just glad I took the train today instead of driving. The traffic was absolutely brutal near the highway entrance. Shared context of the commute.
Which lets A use another one of our key phrases. Tell me about it. I usually drive, but this weather is just too full on. I'd rather be reading.
Right, commiseration, plus that great C2 upgrade, full on. Now, the end of this conversation is natural. It's prompted by the environment. So B just says, exactly, well, this is my stop coming up.
It signals the end without needing a formal closing structure. A just says, all right, have a good one. A friendly, low-commitment farewell.
And B says, you too. The key insight for incidental small talk is its conciseness. It relies on the shared immediate context, the noise, the commute, the weather, and short observational opinions. The structure is so fleeting, it's shared moment, to common activity, to short opinion, to a natural fade.
The conversation ends naturally not because of some duty, but because the shared context, the train arriving at the stop, has passed. It's the ultimate low-commitment conversation, and mastering those short reactions is absolutely essential for these brief exchanges. All right, this feels like the real core of our deep dive today. We need to dissect that crucial difference between a sentence that is grammatically correct and one that is natural and advanced.
This is where we replace stiffness with fluidity.
Yeah, mastering contractions, strong collocations, idiomatic phrases, all that good stuff.
The C2 upgrade is all about fluidity and social integration. It's about choosing the phrase a native speaker would reflexively, instinctively select. It's not enough to be correct anymore. You have to be current and you have to be conversational.
Okay, let's start with the travel intention. Say you're at an airport.
The basic sentence is, I go to Madrid for business trip. It's grammatically understandable, but it sounds like a literal translation from another language.
Right. And the upgrade is, I'm heading to Madrid on a work trip.
The linguistic analysis here is so important. First, the verb choice. We replace I go to with the continuous form I'm heading to.
Why is that better?
I go to Madrid implies a general repeated habit, like I go to the gym on Tuesdays. When you're talking about an immediate or near future travel plan, the continuous aspect I'm heading to is far more natural. It conveys immediacy.
That's a subtle but really pervasive difference.
It is. And second, the collocation upgrade. On a work trip is the fixed, high-frequency lexical chunk. We just don't say for business trip. We use the preposition on and the noun phrase, work trip. And that simple choice signals a high-level mastery of English word partnerships.
It's the difference between sounding like you know the rules and sounding like you actually use the language every day.
Absolutely. The listener's brain just registers the phrase on a work trip as effortless and authentic.
Okay, moving to the workplace. Discussing your workload is Small Talk 101.
The basic version. Today is very busy for me. I have a lot of meetings. It's correct, but it's a bit long and flat.
And the upgrade, it's a pretty full-on day today. I've got back-to-back meetings.
See that powerful cascade of fluency markers? It's amazing.
Break it down for us.
First, we use the contraction "it's" immediately. Then we incorporate informal but highly natural language, like pretty full-on.
Which is a great phrase.
It's a fantastic contemporary phrase that just means intensely busy or demanding. And then, instead of the generic "a lot of meetings," we use the high-frequency idiom "back-to-back meetings."
That one lexical chunk just perfectly conveys the intensity of the schedule. No gaps, no breaks.
Exactly. A native speaker's ear absorbs the efficiency and the natural rhythm of that phrasing immediately.
This upgrade really shows the power of concise communication. You convey so much more intensity in 7 words than the basic version does in 10. Now, this is a fascinating one because it's not just about language, it's about cultural politeness norms.
Yes.
Small talk sometimes requires you to express a negative preference, but you have to do it gently to maintain social harmony.
The challenge is all about mitigating the negative impact. The basic version is just blunt. The music is too loud. I don't like it.
Which risks derailing the whole positive social dynamic because it's delivered as an objective complaint.
You might offend the host, so the upgrade is, the music's a bit loud for my taste, to be honest.
Okay, let's really dedicate some time to analyzing the 3 layers of C2 level softening that are used here, because this is so essential for English politeness.
Okay, layer 1 is mitigation.
Replacing too loud with a bit loud.
Exactly. The inclusion of a bit is a classic mitigation marker. It reduces the degree of the negative statement. It's not too loud, which implies it's an absolute failure. It's just a bit loud, which implies a slight discomfort that's manageable.
Okay, so that's layer 1. Layer 2 is personalization.
The phrase, "for my taste," this is crucial. It changes the statement from being an objective fact about the music into a subjective personal preference.
So you're saying the problem is with me, not necessarily with the music.
Precisely. You disarm any potential conflict right there.
And then layer 3, the discourse marker.
To be honest, this phrase is fascinating because its main function here isn't to suggest you were previously being dishonest.
Right.
Instead, it adds this slight sense of intimate, sincere disclosure. It softens the criticism by making it feel like a gentle confidence you're sharing with the other person. The cumulative effect of these 3 linguistic choices is that social harmony is maintained, even while you're expressing a negative opinion.
We've really stressed the importance of the closing, but let's just review the linguistic elements again that transform that abrupt exit into a gracious one.
Okay, the basic version. "I need to go. Bye." It's functional, but it's abrupt, and it disregards the time you just shared. It just prioritizes your own urgency.
And the upgrade. Anyway, I better get going, but it was great chatting. See you around.
And that is the structure we outlined, delivered flawlessly. First, anyway, which acts as that smooth transition marker. It's a clear signal that the topic is changing and the interaction is winding down.
Second, I better get going.
That's your soft, polite reason. It implies a duty elsewhere without explicitly demanding a sudden break.
Third, it was great chatting.
The essential positive closing. A retrospective validation of the time you spent together.
And fourth, see you around.
Which is the friendly, low-commitment farewell. It's suitable for almost any casual or professional setting where you might see them again. By stringing those 4 elements together with a natural rhythm and flow, you sound utterly confident, thoughtful, and highly proficient.
That 4-part closing really does feel like the ultimate safety net for advanced learners. It ensures you leave a positive, well-managed impression every single time. Okay, so even when you're armed with this entire C2 linguistic toolkit, advanced learners still fall into traps that can make their small talk feel awkward.
And these pitfalls are almost never grammatical. They are culturally and socially derived.
So this is about social intelligence, the unwritten rules of conversational depth.
This is the segment on cultural integration. You can have absolutely perfect grammar, but if you violate a social distance norm, the conversation will feel uncomfortable, and all your hard-won fluency will be undermined. Hashtag 5.1. Oversharing too quickly.
The first problem is misinterpreting the function of small talk questions. A simple, "how's your day going?" It's a social ritual. It's a temperature check.
It is not an invitation for deep personal disclosure.
Exactly.
Small talk operates in the shallow end of the pool. When someone responds to a formulaic question with a long, detailed story about very personal topics, a recent medical issue, a major family conflict, their existential dread about work, it violates the social contract.
And the listener just isn't emotionally prepared for that level of depth from a near stranger.
It forces them into emotional labor they didn't consent to.
I remember I once accidentally started oversharing about a minor surgery when someone just asked, "How are you?" And the listener, you could just see them freeze. It felt terrible even though my language was correct.
That freezing is the telltale sign of a social distance violation. The solution is just to stick to the established pattern. A short answer, plus one or two low-stakes, work-related or weather-related details.
So instead of a detailed medical update, the right response would be something like, "Not too bad, thanks. A bit hectic this morning, trying to get that report finished, but it's calming down now."
That is the perfect formula. It acknowledges the question, it provides a single, professional, low-stakes detail, the hectic morning, and it offers a positive conclusion. It's calming down. That is more than enough to satisfy the social requirement. You have to remember, save the intense narratives and the vulnerability for people you know well. #TaxHack 5.2, asking very direct personal questions.
This next pitfall touches directly on Anglophone cultural norms of privacy and individualism.
Right. Certain topics are just considered taboo or inappropriate in initial small talk, and it doesn't matter what the context is.
Our source material gives 3 specific examples that are almost universally considered too direct in early interactions. How much do you earn?
Oof.
Why aren't you married?
Also bad.
Or what's your religion?
These questions just violate the privacy barrier immediately. They imply a level of intimacy that hasn't been earned, and they often force the other person into a really uncomfortable defensive position. Even if your intent is just innocent curiosity from a different cultural background, the social effect is intrusion.
So the advanced learner absolutely has to stick to safer, general topics that establish identity without demanding vulnerability or, sensitive financial or personal information.
Precisely. The goal is just to find common ground. What do you do for work is a standard identity marker. Do you live nearby? Establishes locality. Have you been here long? Establishes tenure.
These are facts people are usually willing to share.
And professionally. The contrast between asking what line of work are you in, which is safe, and how much do you earn, which is unsafe and feels like you're demanding a tax audit, perfectly illustrates that difference between finding rapport and demanding personal access. #TaxHack 5.3, monologuing the conversational imbalance.
Okay, the final common trap is a failure of reciprocity. Just talking excessively about yourself without asking questions back. You fail to show any interest in the other person.
This is what makes a conversation feel like an audio textbook delivered by one person. The speaker is just broadcasting information, they're not engaging in a dialogue. And that imbalance just destroys any feeling of connection. It signals a real lack of social awareness.
The solution is just to build the habit of turning the conversation back to the other person after you've said 1 or 2 sentences. It requires discipline, but it ensures the conversational load is shared.
And we have to highlight that magic phrase again. What about you?
It's so simple.
It's an immediate corrective measure to imbalance. For instance, I work in IT, mostly on the support side, handling large network issues. It keeps me pretty busy. How about you? What area are you focusing on these days?
That simple addition just flips the focus, it shows humility, and it makes the listener feel valued. It converts a monologue into a dialogue, balancing the load and confirming you're still listening and engaged. Maintaining that conversational balance is just non-negotiable for effective small talk. Okay, we have covered the entire architecture, the structure, the rhythm, the phrases, the traps. Now let's bring it all together with a side-by-side comparison.
This is where you can vividly see the cumulative effect of either ignoring or adopting these C2 techniques.
Yeah, this deconstruction really confirms that the difference between awkward and natural often just hinges on rhythm, speed, and those tiny high-frequency linguistic choices.
Contractions and collocations, they're everything. #tag 6.1. Deconstruction of the slightly awkward version A.
Let's re-examine version A, the stiff example. Let's imagine 2 colleagues meeting in the hall. A starts with, "Hello, how are you?"
And B replies, "I am fine, thank you." And you?
A says, "I am fine also. Today is busy day. I have many tasks."
And B ends it with, "Okay, I have to work now." And A just says, "Okay, hey, bye."
Cringes slightly. It's just so painful to listen to.
The stiffness comes from several factors, and all of them just compromise that C2 goal of naturalness. First, the hyperformal greetings. "Hello, how are you?" when "Hey, how's it going?" is the expected default.
And then the complete avoidance of contractions. I am fine. No one talks like that.
No. Third, the grammatical error in the chunking. Today is busy day instead of it's a busy day today. And fourth, the literal statement of condition in the closing. I have to work now.
It's truthful, but it's so blunt, it's unmitigated. It fails the politeness test because there's no positive farewell or context.
It's functionally communicative, but it's socially painful.
It sounds like an AI from the 90s translating word for word, and it's missing all of that inherent social fluidity. Hashtag 6.2. Deconstruction of the more natural version B.
Okay, now let's hear the difference in the natural exchange with all the upgrades we've discussed.
A starts with, hey, how's it going?
B replies, not too bad, thanks, you.
A says, yeah, good, just a bit swamped today. I've got a ton of things to finish.
And B says, I know the feeling. What are you working on that's so full on?
Then A closes it out. Just chasing reports. Anyway, I should probably get back to this budget draft. It was great catching up. Catch you later.
And B says, will do. See you around.
It's an instant, profound improvement. The casual greeting and the use of that conversational shortcut. Not too bad, thanks. Yeah. It just immediately sets a relaxed, natural tone.
And notice the fluency markers in A's response. Just a bit swamped today. It uses the mitigation marker a bit, and that high-level idiom swamped, meaning overwhelmed. And the contractions are used reflexively. I've got.
And B introduces the phrase, I know the feeling, another high-frequency reaction showing empathy, and then employs that C2 term, full on, when turning the conversation back to A. It shows active listening and advanced vocabulary.
And the closing is the masterpiece. A uses the transition marker. Anyway, the soft reason, I should probably get back to this budget draft. The positive closing, it was great catching up. And the friendly farewell, catch you later.
The awkward version wasn't really grammatically incorrect for the most part, but the natural version integrates rhythm, contractions, high-level collocations, and that structured closing.
And it makes it sound like an authentic, everyday, effortless conversation. And that is the goal of advanced fluency. Hashtag outro.
Wow, we covered a tremendous amount of ground today. This deep dive really went from the macro structure of small talk all the way down to the micro-level choice of a single discourse marker. It's a complete overhaul of how to approach casual English conversation.
So to summarize the key actionable steps you can take away from this. First, internalize the 3 stages: opening, keeping it going, and closing. That will help eliminate conversational panic. The structure really does free up your cognitive resources.
Right. And second, integrate those advanced phrases into your speech by actively shadowing them. Really focus meticulously on the music, the rhythm, and the stress patterns of the sentence.
Third, always tailor your language and its depth to the specific context. Ask yourself, is this a professional setting, a social gathering, or just a momentary incidental interaction?
And finally, rigorously avoid those 3 common pitfalls: oversharing too quickly, asking overly direct personal questions, and failing to achieve that conversational balance by monologuing.
Those are the social cues that, honestly, more than any grammar mistake, will signal a lack of cultural fluency.
So the ultimate goal here is not linguistic perfection. You don't need to use every single idiom we listed in every conversation.
No. The ultimate goal is to sound approachable, natural, and confident enough to initiate and maintain these light conversations. The real skill of advanced small talk isn't in what you say about yourself, but it's in the structural and linguistic effort you put into making the other person comfortable and valued.
When you use these structured phrases and these polite buffers, you're signaling to the listener that you are a competent, socially aware conversational partner.
So let this all settle in. Think about it. Identify your weakest link in the small talk chain. Is it your openings, your follow-ups, or your closings? And now, pick just one of those C2 4-part exit structures we talked about. Commit to shadowing it 10 times a day, and then use it in your very next professional or social interaction. You will see a dramatic improvement.
Take care, apply this knowledge, and we really hope this deep dive helps you navigate those crucial social situations with grace and with effortless confidence.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.